Hello dear World of Warcraft friends. Patch 12.1 hasn't even been officially released yet, and BlizzCon is still ahead of us. And yet, the first version of patch 12.1 is already here, because it just popped up on a test server. And in this video, we'll take another look at it. Where can you actually play it right now, and so on and so forth. And point B, what content can we expect in this patch? We'll take a look at that in this video. If you want, feel free to leave a like, subscribe. We are only 25 subscribers away from 37,700 as of now. That would be really awesome. And with that, let's get started. Ian Hesse Coasters first talked about the patch earlier this year in the state of Azeroth, which was kind of a little yearly preview. Not a review, but a preview of what's coming up for us. And that's where this content was announced, among other things. The so-called Labyrinths, a new delve format. And that's actually one of the most interesting things, I would say. All in all, we've had delves in the game since World of Warcraft: The War Within. By now there are 10 of them, and with every patch a few more are added. Small dungeons that you can complete solo, rush through in 10 minutes and get a bit of loot. Labyrinths are supposed to expand on this concept, and we can see that here in this state of Azeroth. These are some concept drawings of them. Labyrinths are basically extra large delves. We can see that right here. We have an entrance area here and 8 chambers around it. The special thing is, as Ian said back then, you don't have to complete the labyrinth all at once. So that means you can go in there on Wednesday and say, I'm going to clear chamber 2B and 2A now. The next day I'll continue with 3A to 3C here, and I'll do the remaining 3 on Sunday or whatever. You can do it however you want. So in the end, these are bigger delves, but you don't have to rush through them right away. There really isn't much more known about it, but I strongly assume that there will be Theta loot from it, because it requires more effort. So let's see if maybe there will even be, I don't know, mythic track items or something like that. And it's supposed to keep you, even as a solo player, a bit more engaged. I think this is by far the most interesting content that patch 12.1 brings with it. But besides that, there's a whole lot more planned. Unfortunately, he didn't really talk much more about it, but we'll see that in a moment. Here you can see the concept art again. And so on and so forth. I think there will be a labyrinth at first. And then, if it goes over well, the whole thing will most likely be expanded further in the future. But here too, we just have to wait and see how things develop. Personally, I think delves are pretty awesome. I've always been a big fan of them and especially enjoy playing them on alts. That's why I honestly think this version here is pretty cool. And yeah, if we take a look, we see there's something called a patch sniffer. So basically a patch sniffer that always checks if something is happening on the World of Warcraft servers. And now we can see, yeah, something has happened. Specifically, the internal servers were updated from patch 12.1 to 12.1.5. However, that's one of the internal Blizzard test servers. They're encrypted. That means data mining isn't possible yet. And it also means that no one has been able to get any insights so far. If Blizzard sticks to the current release schedule, this patch will most likely be released in October. In other words, we'll probably get the official PTR sometime in August. Usually it takes about, I don't know, 2 to 4 weeks after everything goes onto the internal servers before the public test rooms go online. So I'll say this, it probably won't take much longer. And here, based on the content roadmap, we can see which content is still planned. For example, the Labyrinths. I'm generally curious to see how they want to implement that, because there won't be a new area either. I could definitely imagine that this labyrinth will be located here at first, on this new island. We also saw here in the concept art that the whole thing was underground. So it's quite possible that we'll discover some kind of chamber inside this mountain and then step inside. Otherwise, I don't know where else they could sensibly include it. But I'm sure they'll find a way at this point. And also very interesting, a new raid has been announced. I strongly assume that it will work the same way as with the Sporefall raid here. I can definitely imagine that it will be a Mythic Flex raid again. That means you can also do Mythic with 15 to 25 players. That's just my guess, not a confirmation. And I think it will be at most a raid with 1 or 2 bosses. So just like Sporefall. We know that in patch 12.1, a new raid with 8 bosses is coming to the Cold Isle. I think players will have enough to do with that for now. And just like with the Midnight Start raids, that will be the main content. And then there will just be another small raid, maybe again with a bit better loot. Which probably won't be quite as difficult, where players can throw themselves at it again. So yeah, I think it's basically a pretty nice idea. It also keeps the story fresh. So if you're not interested, you don't have to do it. But honestly, I also think it's cool that they're trying something like this. It's been ages since raids were added to the game with small patches. I think the last time was in Battle for Azeroth or something like that. That's why, in my opinion, it's actually a good addition. And then they've also announced new content and systems that's actually mentioned almost every time. And that can mean pretty much anything. I mean, anything from quest lines to new interface elements and so on and so forth. I very strongly suspect that's the case. Or maybe it's some kind of mini mode, whatever. Because we can see here that with 12.1, more story content has already been announced. And also updates for the holidays. That's why I don't think this will come with 12.1. But maybe there will be some kind of story around the labyrinth. Systems could also mean something like, for example, there's a cloak in the labyrinth that you can upgrade. Or like we had with the Omnium tomes, maybe something like that will come back. So anything is possible. It's all still vague. But for a small patch, personally, I think it sounds pretty cool again. So let's wait and see. Let's see what's coming our way. And I think in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll definitely be able to show a few more pictures. I'm looking forward to it. What's your opinion? Feel free to write it in the comments. And with that, thanks for watching, see you in the next video, and take care.